welcome everybody. I know some people are still joining right now, so we're going to give them some time to find their seats and get settled. But I do want to welcome everyone to the virtual stage of the Lawrence Family JCC Jacobs Family Campus. I am Ryan Isaac. I am the Director of Cultural Arts at the San Diego Center for Jewish Culture. I hope everyone out there is safe and feeling strong and staying sane. It's great to see everybody tonight. We want to let you know that as long as everybody's inside, we are going to be here. The Arts and Ideas team and the JLearn team of the JCC will be continuing to provide various entertainment for you and programming throughout. So as long as there's coronavirus, we're going to be here virtually for you. I do want to take this time to thank the underwriters of our 2019-2020 season. Without their support, none of this would be possible, whether on the stage back at our facility or here virtually. So thank you to all the underwriters. We've got a good week of programming in addition to tonight. Tomorrow at 7:30, filmmaker and cartoonist Hanan Harkol will be joining us. He has a new film that is due out in the very near future. He's an interesting guy with a number of talents, and we'll probably discuss some of all of them, or a little bit of all of them tomorrow. Then on Wednesday at 7:30, klezmer violinist Alicia Spiegels will be joining us. She's in New York, so she's going to stay up a little late for us. Probably a little extra coffee for her on that day, but it'll be fun to hear her performing her one-woman show from her home in New York. You can find those links to register for tomorrow night and for Wednesday night in our chat at some point this evening. And while we're talking about the chat and Zoom protocol in general, I do want to remind you that many of you are visible. You're on video. Keep that in mind that we can all see you. So if there is any reason that you should go into hiding for a bit, please feel free to take advantage of the hide video function and then come back and join us whenever you're ready. Everybody is muted. If you have any questions or comments throughout, you may use the chat. We'll be able to see that chat. And perhaps later, if there are questions for Tiffany, we can direct them to her through the chat. So tonight we are joined by Tiffany Shlain. Tiffany is a filmmaker, an author, a web pioneer, multi-talented guest for us tonight. She has premiered 4 of her films at Sundance. She is the founder of the Webby Awards, a program to honor distinguished websites. And her first book was released just about 6 months ago. Here it is, 24/6. Timing really couldn't have been any better for us to have her tonight. So please welcome Tiffany Shlain. And Tiffany, you want to add anything else about yourself?
No, I'm really happy to be here with all of you. I think this has been a very intense time, but it's beautiful to be able to be part of so many communities online. And the fact that we can gather all together here is the best of technology. I mean, I love technology. I just don't love it all the time, but I've seen some beautiful moments of humanity be used and supported with technology in the last 3 weeks for sure.
And Tiffany reminds me of a good point and what's quickly becoming my favorite point of this era for us. Our reach is now much more expansive than it was before, and we continue to have guests from around the country, which is terrific and a wonderful way for Tiffany's reach to be further and our JCC reach to expand as well. So welcome everybody far and near, and we are glad that you decided to spend your evening with us. Tiffany, first let's just talk about the book. And I know that when the concept of 24/6 and unplugging from technology one day a week, it's something that you have practiced in your home for a while with your family. Why now for writing the book?
Yeah. Well, so my family and I for over 10 years now turn off all screens from Friday night to Saturday night for what we call our technology Shabbats. And it has been the best thing that I think I've ever done as a person, and certainly as a mother and wife and everything, and just as an individual. Just turning off the screens every Friday night, I feel like I get to detach from the stress of the world and be more present and reflect and do things that I never normally do. Now, in the last 3 weeks, we're all on the screens so much more right now, reading a lot of stressful news. There's a lot of beautiful moments like this, but there's just a lot more stimulation on our minds all the time. So I find that on my Friday nights, when I turn off the screens with my whole family, I feel such a sense of relief, and it has recharged me in such a profound way. So I wrote the book. It came out in the fall, but there's a lot of people writing to me now that they're reading the book and it's really helping in this period. And I think even more so than ever, taking time to really put the screens away and take a break and take a day of rest, which, you know, I am Jewish. I'm not a religious Jew. I am a cultural Jew. And the only people that I really knew that did a full day of rest where they didn't work and they didn't touch screens or anything were Orthodox Jews. And I was always like, oh, that's not me. I'm a bad Jew. That's what I would be. I'm not that kind of Jew, so I am not going to do a full day of rest. But let me tell you, for 10 years, engaging with this tradition of Shabbat as a day of rest, and the way that my family and I interpret it is no screens, because that the screens are wrapped up with so much work and stress, and yes, fun, but a lot of fun has to be documented and captioned and filtered, and that can feel like work too. So to really get a day of rest, I feel like is so important. And, you know, my brother is a doctor and he's been doing these dispatches about Corona. And he talks a lot about how do you make your immunity strong. And one of the first things he says is like, don't use your alarm clock. Sleep as much as you can right now, because that's the best thing to fight your immunity. And I also believe that having time away from screens is also going to build your immunity, because there's a lot of stress and mental health stuff going on when you're just, your cortisol level is so high and you're on high alert all the time.
Do you still remember the early days of unplugging and how you felt?
Yeah.
Was there effort into building that routine and the discipline?
I think people were really surprised when we first, I think it's really about training other people that you're not going to be available. We have a landline, which is really good in California. Those of us were all, well, most of us are Californians here, for earthquakes and fires. And it's really good to have a landline. Like there was even a point last week where I know the internet and the cell phone service is being so overtaxed right now that I got one of those messages that I couldn't get through. And I thought, oh my gosh, what if the internet went down right now? So I was really glad I have a landline. I'm always happy I have a landline. But when we first started doing it, it was really, people were so surprised that we were turning off the network for a day. They couldn't believe it. And it was really about telling people why you were doing it, that it felt like it was too much all the time. And of course, now everyone talks about being addicted and they're on the screens too much. But 10 years ago, it was not as much in the conversation. But it felt not good the way I was living. I felt like I was never present and I was distracted all the time. I mean, it's interesting now because so much of, like, we're home a lot now. And okay, I can see so many people. So how many of you, raise your hand if you feel like you're on screens like more than ever right now? Right? All the time. And on the one hand, it's like a lifeline. And I get that. I mean, I'm having Zooms for Shabbat or with my girlfriends and for birthday parties have been fantastic. But I just know that there's a certain point, like we need to value in our society just being with yourself and thinking and reading and reflecting and not being attached to this network at every moment. There's value to being bored. There's value to staring out the window. There's value to being really present with whoever you're with. That who you're with is important. And it's not like there's more important people on the phone or on the other screen. Or if you're by yourself, I mean, some of my favorite periods of time on my tech Shabbats are really just thinking. I think we need to value more just thinking, because we're spending a lot of time getting a lot of stimulation all the time, a lot of input. And, you know, I'm a filmmaker and a writer, and I'm always trying to think of ways to make me feel more creative. And there's so much research to back up that, you know, and what I experience, which is my best ideas come on Saturdays when I'm screen free. There's like, since I've been doing it for a decade, they come on Saturday. And the reason why I think that happens is that my mind gets to ruminate with all the ideas that are already in there and information I've learned, and it gets to process it in a new way. But if we spend 24/7, just input, 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 input. There's never a chance to formulate or process or reflect.
So by the time Friday evening rolls around, are you craving it? Is it?
Oh, I'm so excited to turn off every Friday night. I start looking forward to it Wednesday.
Hmm.
Like, oh, 2 more days, 2 more days, and then I get to turn it off. And we always have a Shabbat dinner. We make challah on Friday morning. And actually, during the lockdown, I've been doing a Zoom challah class. Anyone can join. I'm sure Ryan will be happy to share the link. It's been very fun. We've had like over 100 people from all over the world baking challah together and with my daughters. And but we started Friday morning, and I'm always excited. I put things out that I want to read deeply on the weekend that I haven't had a chance to read. I put things that I just feel like I don't normally have time to do. I mean, it's interesting during the lockdown because I've seen a lot of people saying, I'm gardening, I'm playing an instrument, I'm watercoloring, doing all these things that we're normally too busy for. And that's the way I feel every week, is that I get this day that's filled with joy. And the more I really read about Shabbat too, it's a day to be filled with joy. So actually, I don't like the word digital detox. You hear that a lot. Oh, I'm taking a digital detox. I hate that word because to me, it's like, I'm not being deprived of anything. I'm getting all these other things back in my life that I missed because everyone's always just like staring at the screen. Like every spare second you're looking at the screen. And there's so much research that, it's not filling your cup. A lot of it is draining. There's something to fill your cup, like a Zoom with family and friends, or hopefully this one, but a lot of it is not filling your cup. And it's really identifying how much time we're doing that.
So since you've been at home with family, has the routine changed? Have you been tempted to dabble into an additional day off, or?
No, I mean, well, we always at dinner, there's no screens at the table, which I highly recommend. I mean, dinner is like 30 minutes out of the day. And, our daughters are being homeschooled. And so they're on the screen much more than normal. And so on that level, I've kind of laxed. I'm normally very strict about, it's like only 30 minutes a day on the screen. Now it's like they're doing their work on there. But, we've been doing a lot more walks. We're going out every day. We live in Northern California. That's where I'm zooming in from. But the Shabbat, the tech Shabbat is the same as it's always been. And I feel like it feels more important also because the days are really blurring together, right? Raise your hand if you feel like time is very weird right now. Doesn't it feel very like blurry? You're like, what day is it? Where are we? Like, are we in March still? That's the way I feel. So I love that, a lot of what Shabbat is about is to give a week and to make this day feel different from the other days. And that's what it does. So Friday night to Saturday night feels very different, and it feels wonderful. And I feel like it resets me and it replenishes me and it gives me a lot of energy. And if you read about the great wisdom of Shabbat, which is very fun to read as a non-religious person, because all the wisdom is there. For me, I don't do it for religious reasons. So I'm just looking at what is the reason is for study and joy. And then in my book, this book 24/6, I go into all the like physiology and neuroscience and psychology and all the research on why it's so good to take a day of rest. Like even the Seventh-day Adventists, which is a Christian sect that's extremely religious and observant, and they take a full day of Sabbath. That's what they call it. And there have been multiple studies that they live 10 years longer than all other Americans because they take a true day of rest. And I think about that a lot because I get so much out of taking this day of rest. Like, I just feel like when people say, well, how do you do all the things you do? I'm like, because I take a day of rest. I feel more productive. I feel more creative. I feel happier. It feels like my secret sauce. And it's the secret sauce of Jewish history is this concept of a day of rest, which I think is the greatest gift of the Jews, basically. Now that I'm like knee deep in, I've studied it to write the book and have been living it for a decade. And most people I know that are Jewish, maybe they do a Shabbat dinner a couple times a month and light the candles, but I don't really know anyone that does a full day off. And to me, that's where the power is. Like the Shabbat dinner is lovely and fun and social, but it's that day of reflection afterwards and the rest, like a true day of rest, which I feel like a lot of us are experiencing right now in the lockdown, is a kind of we are forced to rest. We're forced to be at home. So it feels like we're being forced to do a Shabbat, and it's fascinating because we were all living a little too fast, I think, for our planet as a society. I feel like we were just moving around, not really paying attention anywhere that we were. And I feel like this is, it's horrible what's happening, but I feel like it's also a great rebalancing and reminder of what's important, because I think we kind of lost sight of it. That's why I wrote the book, because I was like, wow, everyone's just staring at their phones all the time. No one's ever anywhere. They're nowhere.
I've been jealous of the people who are sharing all the rest and creative
You're busy. You're busy.
Undertakings. I'm looking at it. It's somewhat appropriate that our CEO Betzy is in the middle square for me. It's Betzy Lynch for the block there.
Where are you? Wait,
there hasn't been a lot of resting with her, with us at the JCC, but
it's been hard. Yeah.
Hearing you describe all of this, Tiffany, just for 15 minutes or so, I can't wait to give this a shot. And I know at one point in your book, or a couple points, I remember reading that you say it's easier than you think.
It's easier. It is, I think. Yeah.
It might have been right around the time you mentioned the challah bake, and you have a nice little, you just break it down into sections where if you have small kids, if you have teens, and how to approach it. And
yeah.
How, in terms of easier than you think, it's just ripping off the Band-Aid and going for it?
I think it is much easier than you think. And then you can't live without it. That's the way I feel. Like I cannot live without my one day off. And I think it's all about your mindset. And again, it's like, instead of thinking you're not going to get screens for a day, think all the things you're going to get back. And what I usually say, and in the book, I really do describe a lot of different strategies to convince your partner or your kids or your boss, or, there's a lot of different ways to approach it, but it's really about a mindset of that is not hard. That, if you just wrote a list of all the things you wish you had more time to do and you planned them for that day, it's like you run towards it. And I think that we all have so much fear about being without our phones, but if we remember the joy of just being, I feel liberated. I mean, no, we're just about to get to Passover, we're thinking about freedom and slavery. And the word that always comes to mind on my day off is that I feel free. I feel like I'm not available to everyone to reach me and respond, and all this expectation around me that I feel all the other days of the week, and I feel liberated. So I do walk in the book. The book has like a memoir part of my life and why I started doing, because I had a kind of dramatic thing that happened to me, and then how much it's changed my life. But then I have a very kind of practical how-to section, which has been really interesting, because in the last 3 weeks, a lot of people are posting, holding my book, saying, this is helping me through this period, because the boundaries, I think the big thing is that technology, what was so exciting about it is it removed so many boundaries. You could work from anywhere. You could work from the beach and on vacation. The problem is people then started working from their vacations, and first thing when they woke up, stressful email, last email thing before they go to bed, stressful email. And we need, so technology removed all these boundaries, which we're seeing living at home now. We need to bring some boundaries back, because boundaries around rest are good. We fought very hard in this country to have a weekend, and now we don't have it anymore because we're just on all the time. And I think it's easier than you think, and it's really the highlight of my week every week.
I'm curious, the how-to aspects of the book, was that just natural for you? Did you sit down at the computer and it flowed because it's who you've been for the last 10 years? Or...
Yeah, well, I tried to think of, so many people, I couldn't do that because my 2 kids are in sports. I'm like, we do, 2 kids in sports. Oh, I couldn't do that. My boss would never let me do that. I'm like, well, what do you do? I have an answer for everything. I'm like, my father was a surgeon, and he would take weekends off because he was on call to other surgeons. And I just think we've gotten to the point where we forgot how to live, where we get a true weekend and we are truly present for one day. So, but it was fun. My editor kind of pushed me, because we added this whole section at the back of the book that I didn't have when I first turned it in, of like very how-to practical thing. But it was really fun to write, because I have learned a lot. And, people can't believe that our kids love it. We have a 17-year-old, and she's 17 in a week. And then our youngest is almost 11. And my 17-year-old will say, I'm so glad to not have to do homework for a day, because she's under her most stressful year for high school. And we think that they just can't live without being on social media. She just feels such a sense of relief. I think we're just all living in such a state of overstimulation all the time. And it's just good to know that it's easier than you think. And it feels so good once you do it. And it's this free, simple, ancient practice that's been around for 3,000 years. And mostly now only really observant religious Jews do it. And my big question in the book is, it should be for everyone. Everyone should understand this superpower, which is a day of rest. And what's been really exciting since the book came out is there's a lot of Jews that are discovering what's already in their heritage, but then a lot of people that aren't Jewish, they're Mormon, they're Christian, they're Muslim, they're like, I'm doing tech Shabbats now. And I'm like, awesome. Because just like I do yoga and meditation, and I'm not Hindu or Buddhist, but I have great respect for those faiths. I do yoga and meditation because it makes my life better. It makes me feel better. And I think a tech Shabbat can really make people's lives better.
We happen to just get a question that fits in really well with where we are right now, so it seems like a good time to ask it. Nicole, who's with us, says she's with her little sister right now, who's a college student and also working. Okay. Any tips on taking a rest for students with so many demands on their time?
Mm-hmm. I think the biggest thing is, learning, and certainly college and above, it's like, how do you exist in the world in the best way? And if you can just think of rest as a technology that's going to make you more creative and productive. And then you're going to want to have that day off. Now, a lot of people can't afford to. They have to work 7 days a week. And then I would say, try to make your time off screen free. But I know when I was young and out there and I had a job and I was in college, but if I understood now how valuable it is to rest, to really just that word rest sounds like you're sleeping, and it doesn't. That's not what it means to me. It just means that you're giving yourself time to daydream, to enjoy a meal, to just be present, to ponder, all these things that I don't think anyone does anymore because they're picking up the phone. Any moment they get a break, they pick up the phone or go on a screen. And so for someone that is in college, I would just say that it's like the most powerful thing to keep you productive and your mental health in check and your creativity and your sense of well-being is to really take a day of rest. And, I lay it all out in the science. The science is so clear why it's good for your brain and your soul and your body and all of these things. So I don't know why. And I think this whole pandemic is showing this 24/7 world, why is that inevitable? Oh, that's just the way it is. We're all 24/7 now. But what if we said, actually, you know what? It doesn't feel good that we're on all the time, and questioning that always on society. You have to respond to a text or an email every second. And what if you're like, I haven't have a day to just regroup? And I think it takes courage to do it. But then, since I wrote the book, so many people are like, you can do that? As if people need permission. I'm giving everyone permission to not be online all the time.
That's funny because it sounded like courage was the obstacle, and then quickly it just might be awareness, and then the permission or belief that it requires permission and it might not be granted.
Yeah, but I think it's really about modeling behavior and to rise up. In the last couple of years, there's been such a shift where people, everyone says, oh, I'm so addicted to my phone. Oh my gosh, my alarm just went off. I have to tell you why my alarm's going off because it's so great. So I live in Mill Valley, California, and every night at 8 p.m., as we're all locked in, everyone goes outside of their homes and they howl to show their support for healthcare workers. It's so great. Literally, if I opened my window right now, you would hear, it sounds like the most beautiful cacophony of people sounding like coyotes. Let me just remind my family it's happening. You guys, the howl's gonna happen. I'm the howl reminder. Sorry, I had to just let them know to go to the backyard and howl like a coyote. Okay.
That's fantastic.
I don't know. Are people doing anything like that in San Diego? No.
I haven't seen that in San Diego. I saw something similar in New York. I think around at 7
Oh
p.m.
yeah, where they were like clapping. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, I don't know if San Diego's a kind of synchronized howl type of town. So when you made this switch, you had young children, but I'm thinking 10 years ago, people still had Blackberries at that point, and you made the point that the reliance on the phones was a lot less then than it is now. Did you notice though, as it went on, a difference in just your children at that age?
Well, the iPhone was out. Sorry, everyone's howling outside. Can you hear that?
Yeah.
The iPhone, I think, was the big thing that switched things. Because can you hear that? It's very noisy over here. No?
No, we can. I can hear it.
Okay. So the iPhone was really something that changed things, I think, because suddenly you could bring your laptop with you everywhere in your pocket, and then no one was ever present. I mean, how annoying is it now that people just feel like it's okay to pull out their phone when they're talking to you? And it's just like, wait, aren't we just having a conversation? And I just want to make it uncool again to bring your phone out and have it on the table. It's like, I cited some research in my book that just seeing somebody else's phone off on a desk will make you not focused. And I think we need to not only be aware of our own use, but how much we're affecting other people. And I think of it like secondhand smoke, because, when you pull out a screen, when you're with somebody, everyone just starts tuning out. And listen, I don't feel like you need to be present every second, but the moments that you're having a meal with someone or a meeting with someone, or you're with someone that you took 20 emails to get there to be with that person, put the phone away. Like, just be with them for that 20, 30 minutes. And then for the tech Shabbat, I would just say, put it away for a day and just, be a human that doesn't need a whole thousands of other humans to feel validated or to exist. That's a really important quality, is to be able to just be. And we're creating a society where a kid is never bored. They always need to be stimulated and entertained. And I don't think that's good.
So since the book has been released, have you had, prior to what we're going through now, have you had people reach out with stories of their own? Have there been any life-changing or go ahead?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people have said it's changed their life. We have a Facebook group called 24/6. And a lot of people, it's just brought balance back for them. So I think, like I said, it's very life-changing. It gives such a kind of grounding part to your week. And yeah, it's very profound. I think it's the most profound switch of something I've done my whole life. It's the best thing I've ever done in my life. I don't say that lightly, because I think a lot about, I'm turning 50 next week. And I've been thinking a lot about what are the lessons I've learned. And that's the biggest one. And that's why I really wanted to write the book and share it with people. I'm like, this is such a simple thing to bring into your life. And there's so much history from, if you're Jewish, from even your own heritage. It's right there. And I felt like it was sad that it was only for Orthodox Jews did it. Like, wait, why are they the only ones doing it? Why don't we play with this idea and wrestle with it, engage with it, and evolve it for our modern times? I actually read that these Orthodox rabbis were saying it's okay to use the phone on Shabbat now that we're in lockdown. And I was like, really? No, keep strong, stay strong, and don't succumb just because. Even my brother was like, oh, now that we're in the pandemic, I guess you're not going to be able to do your tech Shabbats. And I'm like, are you kidding me? I need them more now. I'm reading such stressful news all the time. Like, I need a break from it all.
And now you have become a little more strict than some of the Orthodox rabbis out there with this. So,
well, somebody said to me, they're like, you're very funny because you're not religious, and you're not religious, because I'm strict, but yet, life happens. When we travel, we have to use our phones. Like, when we travel, hopefully we'll travel again, but my husband and I do a lot of speaking. And so if we have to get somewhere, we have to use our phones. And you know, there's exceptions, and I write about that in the book too. So I'm not religious, and I'm also not religious about, like, I have all these rules, but we're human, and rules, they have to get broken sometimes. I'm pretty, I really do not like to ever, I don't want to look at a screen. My husband will be the one, if we get lost, he'll be the one to be like, I need to look up on GPS. He'll pull it out and put it away. But I don't even want to look at it. Like, to me, it stresses me out on my day off. Not the other days, but on my day off, I'm like, oh, put the kryptonite away. I don't want to think about it. It's actually harder during the week. I do all these other things the other 6 days to keep my screen use in check. So when I wake up, I don't look at my phone for like 15 minutes, and I write in a journal. We don't have it at dinner. All these things I do. It's harder the other 6 days when it's more blurry. But on that one day without screens, it's super easy because they're just in a drawer. I'm not even looking at them.
Is there a ceremony to retire the phones on Friday night?
No, I mean, we don't we don't do a special prayer. But usually right before the guests come over for Shabbat, they just go away. Like, oh, the doorbell's rung, boom, screen's off, and it's nice.
Right. What, just for guests tonight who haven't read the book yet, can you talk a bit about what your Saturday looks like in general?
Yeah, I sleep the best sleep on Friday night because there's no screen in my room. And then I do journal a lot in the morning before the kids get up. And then we usually go out in nature, do some art. We'll play a board game. There's a lot of napping. There's a lot of cooking, gardening. There's all these like things that I play ukulele. We'll play music. It's all these things that just bring us joy, and they're very simple. It feels like we're in like analog joy, record player. We're just in a very simple, it's like pre-technology day. And it's lovely. And I love, it really teaches the kids, you know, if we have a question about something, we can't look it up on Google. We're like, wonder what the answer of that is. We have to ponder. We'll walk over to the library, look up some books, see if we can find the answer. And then usually we can, and we're just pondering, which I think is really valuable.
That's great. That's a great story. I'm curious also in terms of, sorry, I just lost my train of thought there. With all the activities you're involved in professionally, and the number of pursuits you have, and with having a background in the digital space, without that day away from it, could you be as productive as you are?
No. I know that I'm more productive. Usually on Sunday, my husband will say, my husband, he's a professor of robotics, and he lived in Israel. And he started doing Shabbat then, but this was before the phone or before screens took over our lives. But he would say that it was amazing how the whole country would just shut down on Shabbat. And yet, even though they had just one day off, it was as if they had 2 days off, because it was such a true day off that he felt so energized. Because in Israel, the Sunday is like the Monday, because they only have one day off for the weekend. And I think that's really interesting on how just having one day off feels like 2 days off there, and they feel so productive. I mean, I'm not advocating for just one day off, because Sundays is like, I'm not like actively working. I'm kind of integrating a lot of my ideas from Saturday. But I do think it's interesting that he feels so productive on Sunday morning. He's just like, he's his most productive on Sunday, the day after Tech Shabbat.
Can you tell us a little more about the challah bake and how that came to be? And
yes, I'd love for you all to join. It's so much fun. So, well, I make challah every Friday, and I usually do it with my daughters. But when we were in the lockdown, I have so many people that I was like, that actually I've wanted to bake challah with, and we've just never found the time. So I was like, I'm doing a Zoom challah baking, and who's going to come? We had people from Israel and Italy and New York and all over the United States, and it was so much fun. A lot of people were making challah for the first time. And then there was a lot of people that I know make really good challah, and we were sharing tips. And then it's every Friday at 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, we make the dough. And it's usually about 40 minutes. And I check in with everyone how they're doing in the lockdown. And then we re-meet at 4 for braiding and painting and a glass of wine before Shabbat. and it's been so much fun. And I had these guest challah baking women from LA who came on, and we had so much fun. But it's really beautiful. I mean, if you can imagine this Zoom screen and everyone's like kneading dough and like talking and kibitzing, it was so sweet, so great.
That's great. And do you think that an activity like that frames, I mean, not just a traditional Shabbat, but also the technology Shabbat, having something to commemorate how we're going to kick it off, and also an activity that is hands-on and also digital free?
Yeah, it's very meditative to do challah on Friday morning. And also, I love that I have to wait for the yeast to rise. Like in our very quick, I want everything to happen this second culture. Making challah in the morning is very meditative, and putting your hands in a pile of dough is the best feeling in the world. And and I was not a baker. I mean, our early challahs were not very good. Now they're very good as we make them every week. But I think people find it very funny that I bake bread, because I'm like, I run a film studio, and like, oh yeah, I bake bread every Friday. People can't believe that we bake bread. You do that every week? I think we need more rituals. I think this is what I'm really talking about, is that we need more rituals in our world, that we've lost so many rituals. And rituals are good. They ground you. They separate time. They bring joy. And I love the rituals. And as I get older, I'm just adding more and more rituals. And because I understand how much meaning comes from rituals. And, even Shabbat, like we're talking about how to do a Seder remotely. And it's also my 50th birthday on Passover. So, how do we integrate those things? But the rituals, the rituals of Shabbat, of Passover, they're so beautiful. And I think sometimes we do them in just little ways, but the tagline for the book is the power of unplugging one day a week. Because to me, again, it was the full ritual of a day, and not just the Shabbat dinner that I felt like was the profound part for me. Like Friday night's very social and beautiful, but it's the reflective time that I feel like we're missing as a society.
It's terrific. Everybody out there, if there are any questions for Tiffany, feel free to type them in as we start.
Now, can I see the chat too? I don't know if I can see everyone else's chat.
Abby, do we have the ability to do that? Or I think we can open it up now.
Okay.
It's a secure crowd. So if anybody wants to chat a question to Tiffany, feel free. And Tiffany, I know with your production studio, I think it was in the book where I read that the people you work with, they get it. They know what you're all about. And there's been
they love the tech Shabbat. They love the ability.
And it's a part of the culture of your company too, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think, people that are managers, I think it's really good for everyone if you say, I value that you have some time to regroup and recharge, and you don't have to respond to me. Oh, look, wait, now am I seeing? How do you navigate friends and their devices at gatherings? For Thanksgiving this year, because a lot of people were on the screens at the Thanksgiving that I was going to, and we just said, because we're all staying in one house, and we said, for Thanksgiving, how about if you want to be on the phone, just go to the bathroom or something, but in the public spaces, we're not going to have the phones. And it really worked. It was really nice. Like we've all traveled from all over the country to be together for a couple days. So when we're in the same room, let's not be on the devices. If you want to go to your room and check your email, but like as we're together, let's make that a together space. It's saying yes. So that's my suggestion there. But for the dinner table, I would just say that's a really easy one to say. We're all working and we're doing our own thing, and a dinner really only lasts like 30 minutes, the actual eating time. Can we say for 30 minutes that we value each other enough to have a conversation where the screens are not going to pull out your screen to show me something? You're just going to put it away. And it was surprisingly easy. If it's all the way you present something. If you say, put your phone away and make it feel like a reprimanding thing, it's not going to work. But if you say, I want to be with you, I want to hear about your day, I want to be present, I love you, I see you, I want to be with you, it's going to work much better. Okay, I want to, okay, oh, there, I just figured that out. I'm going to send you all the hollow link. I would love for you to join. Huh.
And I think this is great, Tiffany, because Betsy's on here. So you can help encourage her to give the rest of us a little time off too.
It is such a good benefit for everyone. Info on the book. I've also made quite a few short films about all of this, and films, you can see them all here. Yeah, I think ultimately, I mean, I've run a big company before. I've run small I've run all different sizes, but you know, I think just really giving everyone a break, it will come back in spades because everyone will be so well rested and psyched, and that's ultimately, everyone wants to keep you motivated and happy and grounded. Let's see.
Yeah, I just got unmuted because I have to defend myself.
Okay, so yeah, there's a lot of teachers that, so at my film studio, I run something called Character Day, which is in schools all over the world, a lot of public schools. And this year we focus on the subject of your character, like your sense of courage and empathy and gratitude in relation to your screen use. So it was a big discussion. And we have a lot of great school partners who have shared the book. There's a great student-run organization called Look Up, like look up from your phone. And they talk about this issue a lot. And there's some schools in France, they have banned smartphones from schools until the age of 15 as a country because it was so distracting and the kids were never studying. They were on their phones all the time when they're with their friends. So I think there's a real movement to create more boundaries around education with screens as well. Let's see, is there another?
Did we want to unmute Betzy so she could?
Oh.
She's been itching to defend herself, I think.
Yes, I would like you, Ryan, to share the email that I sent to you and the entire team on Friday.
Let me find this, and hopefully I don't distract
I sent
everybody.
It last Friday since when we were closed, and this Friday. You can't find it. I will.
I think I have to search through my deleted mail here.
Very funny. Anyway, all that it said was the importance of separation. And that since the only way for us to connect was through technology, that I asked that no one exchange any work-related emails with anybody on the team from Friday at sundown, and I gave them the exact time, till Saturday at sundown and gave them So please note that I am not, Pharaoh over here. And thank you very much.
I will quote from this past Friday's email. We need separation from work, which is much harder to do at home. Please allow for your colleagues' rest and recuperation from a stressful and yet meaningful week of work. Please take care of both your physical and mental health. Shabbat Shalom, Betzy.
Oh,
so there you have it. Beautiful. Kindred spirits.
Yeah, it's really important. And a lot of companies, they said 63% of employees feel, there was a study that I cited in the book, feel like they need to respond over the weekend. And I just think it's, it's just good to give a break.
Yeah.
I think it's such a weird time right now because we're in this forced break. And this friend of mine who's an artist said this great thing. She feels like planet Earth is like, everyone go to your room, which I think is really funny. Think about the way you're living, which I think was really interesting because I think we are all quarantined right now, but instead of looking at it as a bad thing, which I think a lot of people are like, oh my God, we can't go out. Think of it as like, just flip it in your head and think, what an opportunity. Like, okay, yeah, I have to work a couple hours or some of you don't or whatever, but I am going to treat this as like a really extended Shabbat. Or I think for me, I really just treat this Friday night to Saturday night. Like it helps to have that kind of let go day. And then I'm trying to hold to, I mean, there's value to a week. Like I had somebody else that was very worried about everything. And there's a lot to worry about right now. And I was like, just take it a week at a time. There's so much wisdom in this concept of a week. I mean, before Shabbat, time had no ending. That was another revolution in time to say, we're working 6 days, we get a day of rest. there had never been that before the Sabbath. So it was very radical back then. And I think it would be radical if we really brought it back today.
It's great. I think that's a terrific place for us to wrap up. Tiffany, thank you for joining us from the Bay Area. Stay safe up there. Thank you, everybody in San Diego and across the country for hanging out with us tonight. Don't forget, tomorrow we will be back with Hanan Harkol, and then Wednesday again with Alicia Spiegels. And Abby right now is posting on the chat links to register for those two events, and also a link, I believe, to join our mailing list. Maybe it would be nice if we all unmuted and just gave Tiffany a round of applause and show our appreciation for her. We all, it's not quite a howl, but we'll get there.
Give me a howl, everyone. Thank you.
Or a silent howl. Sorry, I overloaded Abby there with too many things to do. To unmute, and there we go. There's our email list for anybody who's not yet on it and can stay abreast of what we have going on. Thank you to Abby, Mindy, and I believe Paul was in here too. The Arts and Ideas team has been working hard, as has the rest of the staff. But I do want to note Abby and Mindy and Paul. The three of them have been working very hard over the last couple of weeks and have helped us present events just like this. So great job, and thank you everybody for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tiffany.
Thank you for having me, Ryan. Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.